What's up, Doc? That has to be
Oh
the title
my
of the episode,
God.
baby.
Oh my God. I am so upset with you right now.
That has to be the
I
title of the episode.
I does, but oh my God, Justin. Help.
so, so there was obviously some NBA news. Big, surprising NBA coaching changes happening. What we're like halfway through the season, essentially. We're going to talk about that and the Bucks and what it all means. But there has been some other news that we do want to talk about. We're going to warm up with the Terry Rozier trade between the Miami Heat, the Charlotte Hornets. The official trade, Terry Rozier heading to the Heat for Kyle Lowry in a protected 2027 first-round pick. Obviously, Miami's offense needed a little bit of a boost. They're tied for 21st in the offensive rating. They're about 113 points per 100 possessions. They're in the bottom half of the NBA for turnover rate. And they don't take a ton of threes, which the Athletic pointed out. They are sixth in the league for three-point percentage. They just don't take a ton of them. So the on-ball deficiencies, I guess, is what you would call the red flag for the Heat, which they are seemingly addressing with Terry Rozier in this trade. I guess your initial reaction, do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it does anything? I think at a quick glance, I look at this and I go, there's going to be a lot of pressure defensively for Bam, which I think there already was, but this like kind of heightens it if they're not going to make more moves before the trade deadline.
I don't disagree with what you said about Bam at all, but I love this trade for Miami. My initial reaction was, I can't believe Miami's getting away with this again. This feels exactly the guard that they need. Like, it feels like Rozier's in that Dame Lillard like style of player that they were looking to bring in over the summer, right? Except, oh, by the way, he costs significantly less to bring in because Charlotte is, starting to rebuild here a little bit. Lowry, between injuries and just,
getting older,
it never really had caught on in Miami. And I think Lowry was clearly on the decline now at this point. Miami fans, I don't think are going to miss him, to put it bluntly. Like, I just think that's something that didn't work out, unfortunately. It's a rare, Heat free agency signing that just didn't kind of pan out.
Yeah.
Now, I like this trade for the Hornets, too, in the sense you got the first rounder back. Like, I do think getting that first rounder back for Miami was crucial. But the counter to Miami, again, having those protections in there, who knows where this pick is going to be down the line. Like, maybe this is a 20s type pick, which I'm not downplaying, but I think when you're given that and Lowry, and maybe we'll see if Charlotte gets some, because their initial reports are that they're not going to buy out Lowry. I think that's what everybody was watching. Would they buy out Lowry and he goes to right away?
Move him around.
And maybe that still happens, but I think they're going to try to trade him at the least and get something on the end, because clearly Lowry is not, I don't expect him to be in Charlotte for the rest of the season. Like Kyle Lowry, we expect to go chase another ring on a contender. But I like this more for Miami. I like it for both teams because I feel like Charlotte needed to do something. But I think Terry, too, with the playoff experience he had, specifically with Boston in that run going to the conference finals. I know we're, I guess 5 seasons removed from that now at this point. But I don't know, like, he just feels like a really like prime Heat culture guy who, when he gets going, can get you a lot of buckets in a hurry. And like you said, for a offense that was 21st in net rating, I think he's a guy that can give you a spark here really quick. And it's always tough for me to gauge Miami in the regular season anyway. We know what they do come playoff time.
Well, right. Like, at the end of the day with the Heat, it's like, let's just see what happens in the playoffs. But I will say, like, looking at a glance of the Heat team roster without even seeing it in motion, it feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Heat fans, let me know, like, it feels like a lot of the guys on the team, excluding probably like Jimmy Butler, they are more of the like catch a pass and shoot player. They're not necessarily creating a lot of shots off the dribble, or if it is off the dribble, it's like a quick sidestep kind of deal. You know what I mean? And then also on top of that, other than maybe Jimmy and Bam, it feels like you don't have like a lot of guys that are like drive the lane and try to slam it home or initiate the contact as much. Um, and I think Terry Rozier helps with that a little bit, and specifically team speed too. I know I was reading that Terry Rozier's transition offense and pace of play is a little faster. That probably will help the Heat. But it does feel like he'll be able to help that. And he himself, we know, can create a lot of pull-up shots off the dribble. So adds another element of that to the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think from a playmaking sense too, it'll take a little bit of pressure off
Yeah.
Hero. I mean, Jacquez too has obviously been a revelation for
Yes.
them.
Yes.
One of, if not the rookie of the year this season. So I think that's been a huge boost for them as well. But yeah, I think the fact, obviously, like he's gonna give. I mean, just he'll have the ball in his hand. I think he'll give a boost to their bench, is what I'm trying to say here. Like
Mhm.
they've kind of stumbled a little bit there. I think he can really give them some versatility. I think you can, but again, I think you can stagger him, Jimmy, and Hero a little bit
Mhm.
and just have a little bit of playmaking on the floor. Like have a, when you're looking at that roster, you're right.
Yeah.
I think there's outside of Jimmy, like there's not a ton of dynamic offensive players, I guess. And so
Right.
yeah, the fact where I think, and that's why I like this, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is because I do think Rozier is a guy who can come in and give you a lot of offense quickly. Like
Sure.
it feels like this lineup is a lot more potent now because they are missing some of the guys that were huge for them in the finals runs last year. Like Max Strus is in Cleveland,
Yeah.
Gabe Vincent's with the
Yep.
Lakers. So, I think in a way this helps replace a lot of that.
I agree. I agree. And so, like you said, with the Lowry side of things, obviously probably going to a contender. I do think I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing if he's still there as a potential mentorship kind of maybe teach LaMelo Ball some things as a veteran in the locker room. Again, I don't, that's a if he's still around thing. But um, I guess at the end of the day, you're in it for the pick and the relocate Lowry kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Charlotte, the pick is ideally what you're going for. And like I said, anything with Lowry is an added bonus. He's on an expiring contract, so
Mhm.
that's not really going to be an issue at all. I think there are plenty of contenders that will come knocking. I could see Boston looking. I could see Philly looking. I could see Denver looking. Anybody that and again, Kyle Lowry is significantly slowed down from his All-Star Toronto days. Like I think he's only averaging something like 8
Did you
points this season. But you also trust him because he's played a ton of minutes. Like he's a veteran player and he can boost the bench potentially.
did you say Philly by a chance? I might have missed that if
Yeah.
you said it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the Sixers should absolutely be interested. And again, the Sixers specifically, I think, need a backup ball handler. And so certainly Kyle Lowry would fit that role.
And he went to
Um,
Nova, so there's that at least local connection.
well, there's the Philly connection and the Nick Nurse
Yeah.
connection. So I think that that's
Which,
going to always be mentioned every single time.
dude, we don't have to go down this road because I know we don't talk college basketball here. Oh my, Nova is bad.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I,
dude, I my family, they all like a bunch of them went to Villanova, and
uh
obviously we live very close to
Yeah,
Villanova,
yeah,
like
yeah.
where we grew up. So like they're all big Nova fans, and obviously with the runs in recent history and how good they've been recently, they're all in. Dude, I'm in a text group with a bunch of my uncles and cousins, and like, dude, they're like, how is it this bad? So,
Jay Wright retired, bro.
holy
It gets
moly.
weird. It
Yeah.
can get spooky on some of these college programs. And I mean, that's gonna say again, not to totally pivot sports now too with
But
college, but
yeah,
like that's gonna be the big thing with Nick Saban
David.
to watch now in Alabama. Like,
Do you feel like because I'm sure players were informed, but like from a school aspect, I understand the approach of not necessarily wanting to tell the players that like this is my last year because it hurts recruiting. Like you probably start that does feel a little like there's people that went to that school to have Saban as their coach and similar situation with Nova, but like those guys are there because they want that, and now that coach is gone, and you might be like, well, obviously you have the transfer uh, portal, but
that's the key. The transfer portal being much more flexible
yeah,
and actually a real thing as much as it is. Because normally I would be like, yeah, that's an issue. Like if I
yeah,
committed, if I'm a freshman and I've committed to play 4 years under Jay Wright.
And now you're gone.
And he's gone after one. Like, yeah, I'm going to feel some type of way, even if I love Villanova as a school. Like, maybe that's like I went to play for one of the best, and maybe I had other, lucrative D1 opportunities, and I passed them down. I mean, it's cyclical. Like, obviously, Nova has always gone through. I mean, Nova in our lifetime has always been pretty good. Obviously, national championship good here the past few years more than, the 2000s. It always felt like they were good, but they would always kind of come up kind of short.
Dude, I'll tell you what. I don't know if it was it had to have been like a little bit before Christmas time, maybe after, but they lost to Drexel, and my family chat was losing it.
Hey, listen, Drexel, Hofstra rivals, Colonial Athletic Association, baby. You see what's going on.
Without getting myself in trouble, some of the craziest college parties I have ever been to in my whole life happened at Drexel. Like, just
interesting.
The weirdest stuff. like, bro, I don't even know how to explain it, but just like stereotypical college party, but times it by 1,000.
I had so we're gonna go off the rails here a little bit. I'll intro the show in a sec, but because I've been to Villanova is where I'd go. Like, one of my best friends went to Nova.
Nice.
So I was there a lot when I would come back, and because it's just close to where I grew up too.
Yeah,
like Drexel,
right,
you have to go. Drexel's in West Philly. You have to go into the city. Drexel and UPenn are right next to each other.
So we could, like, our house was walkable to the train station.
Yeah,
and like the train right there. So like we could easily get to a Drexel party without any problems.
So like another one of my best friends also went to Drexel, and so I had been there a few times, and I was about to be like, man, really? I don't think anything weird happened. And now I'm going to redact the name, and I was not involved with this, but I was there for this. So I don't know what happened, but for some reason, somebody got a garden hose in the backyard, and they just sprayed and like were shooting it. And man, one of my friends got soaked. Like, he straight up just caught the brunt of it. Yep. And so my friend, as the reaction, just threw a drink on him. Just straight up, like, threw the drink. Yeah. It was not good after. Like, thankfully, it didn't escalate. But it was just like, why was this guy spraying the hose?
What are you doing?
What was happening? It was like March, I think.
We don't have to go down the college party story train, but the Drexel, like, we were in, I think it was probably school housing. Like, it was a high rise. Like, we were on like the 12th floor, it felt like. But the party, it was weird. So what they would do is they'd have 4 rooms that were the party rooms that were on different levels. And the reason they did that is because when the security guard would get a complaint, they'd come to level 4, wherever the first room was, tell us, hey guys, you got to break it up. Like, we got a noise complaint. Everyone would just get on the elevator, go to the next house that was the party, go there until we got a noise complaint, and you would just go. Yeah. But the last one we were at was my buddy's house, and he had one of these like hamsters, but they were it was like a tiny. There's a specific hamster that can run fast as hell, and that was this hamster. And he, drunk, had it out on his hand and was like showing it around the party. And of course, the hamster jumps off his hand.
Of course it does.
And the place like erupted. Like, people were freaking out and screaming. It was crazy. And then the other party, this actually was in Tampa, was the very first frat party I ever went to.
So not Drexel at all.
No. But this is on that level. Because, like, I'm telling you, that night, the rest of the night was just like 50 drunk people scared to walk around the room because they didn't know where this hamster was. And
Did they
everyone,
find the hamster?
I don't know. I ended up leaving. I was like, I'm out. I'm gonna get back on the train and go home. But the Tampa party, the porch.
This is at the University of Tampa, or is this a USF, or like
University of Tampa? Yeah,
USF. Okay.
The porch broke while people were on it.
Yeah, that's
so like if the house is on the one side, the porch that was connected to the house, that side fell, but the far side stayed up, so it created a slide essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And the slide, so everyone fell and then got wedged in between the house and the porch.
Right.
Well, the problem was the kegs were also on the porch on the far side, and those things slammed into people. Like, I don't know if anybody broke a bone or anything, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. It was crazy. And of course, that's everyone's like, everybody's got to go. Cops are coming. Get out of here. Like, you got to go.
Yeah. I think they should probably stop at that point.
So, but that was like the thing. And then the Drexel party, though, the security guard came up and like tried to tell everybody that there was a noise complaint. It's time to move on. And that's when he was told about the hamster loose, and he had to file like a whole animal thing with us. Like, it was a whole thing.
I don't know if I have, besides that, like a just straight up weird story, but in terms of just the most like stereotypical, like when you say what school just brought it, where it was just like an insane party where like it looked like Project X.
Yeah.
Bro, University of Delaware. University of Delaware was moving different.
That's funny.
It started probably at 12:30 in the afternoon.
It just kept going.
It went till 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was just the whole time everybody was off.
Just going, dude. And it's wild because like now the thought of that is, I would be like, oh my God, I would.
I ain't got that in. No, I do not. We do not have that in. You're a dad.
Yeah.
I'm a mid, like low 30-year-old. I do not have that in.
I was asleep at 8:45 last night, and it was a Friday. So that just puts you where I'm at.
No, we went to Topgolf, and our bay ended at 9:30, and that was it. Like a few of them went to the casino afterwards, and they're like, "Oh, you gonna come?" I'm like, "No, bro, I'm going to bed. Do you know I'm going to sleep."
I think it was because we have YouTube TV now, so I'm pretty sure I had the Sixers game on. It was either the Sixers or it was Flyers. I can't remember, but we were watching it and passed out. So
listen. When you get washed, it hits you quick. There's no way around it. Welcome, everybody.
Wait. Hold on. Okay. To bring it back to NBA, you can have a party with 2 NBA players. Who would you pick right now?
Do I want this to what kind of party do I want this to be?
Let's say we're going, like, say you are going out. I don't know. You're just going out for a night.
Harden.
Yeah, that's fair.
And oh man, who's on Harden's level? Like, who's the other like known party guy? I want to say like Dennis Rodman back in the day. I feel like that would get weird.
Would be. You'd find like Carmen Electra and all that. Remember that? Was that in the?
No, he's dating Carmen Electra. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go out with MJ, you'd just be gambling all night.
Yeah, which is fine, but I don't got that kind of money.
Oh, no. MJ, no. Listen, MJ, I'm gonna be playing. I'm not gonna have anything left by the end of it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
MJ's gonna bet. We're gonna be walking out, and MJ's gonna bet me on like what like how many cracks are gonna be in the next floor tile or something.
You could pick Jimmy and say that in the morning, he's gonna make you some bomb coffee to wake up.
I would love to go on. Wow, that sounds really inappropriate. But I would love to go on a coffee tour with Jimmy Butler and play dominoes and domino park. That's more of my speed at this point. Honestly.
Yeah.
It definitely would be on that for sure. Welcome everybody to the Jive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rafuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Cousart.
Online debate is not about steaming the tide, but doing your best to learn to swim without flotation aids.
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
I don't even know what that means.
What's the? I wish they had like a meme of the week that like came with it too, or something like that.
Well, it's like a picture.
Well, what's the
You don't want to see this picture?
I probably don't.
I'll bring it up anyway for the YouTube.
You want to make it timely and just put the Sydney Sweeney pic behind it?
That I feel like is, yeah. Like we probably could see. Oh, wait, hold on. I'll just show you. Like it is. We're getting a little like, hey.
Whoa, hey, yo, this is a family-friendly podcast. What's going on here on InSpoBot?
I told you,
man.
For anybody listening,
swimming upstream, I was just a different kind of swimming upstream.
Yeah. For anybody listening, it was a. I guess that's a chest armpit on the side there. It's like a woman kissing a dude right on the chest.
Yeah, in a very sensual manner. Wow.
Well, that's why I told you. I was like, there is a meme with it. I don't know if I should share it.
It's 10:56 in the morning too when we're recording this. So like they're extra on it early InSpoBot. God help us all. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us. Full disclosure, I gotta be honest, I gotta check the podcast reviews on Apple. It's been a little bit.
I think we're good, because I was checking the other day, because I got an email about, this is gonna be such like behind the scenes stuff that we could have just handled off mic, but I got an email from Apple Podcast saying that they updated their terms of service because they're adding, I guess it's like an AI transcription service to all podcasts. Like someone can hit to, so they can read it. So I went through and I was like, oh, I bet if I don't like accept the terms and conditions, they'll take the podcast off, and I don't want that. So I went in and did it, and then I realized that with my Gmail, our podcast wasn't showing up, and I was like, oh my God, how long has the podcast not been on Apple?
Oh,
and
I was like, it's for sure on Apple. I was like, I listened to it there the other week.
So again, the behind the scenes stuff with Spreaker, the hosting platform that we're with, they're very nice. I forgot that we had to transfer it over to them so that everything's kind of in one kind of area. So everything's fine. But I was going to say that in doing that, they still haven't fixed the reviews. They show the oldest ones first.
Oh,
so
good,
like it's still, it says we've got 500 and some review for stars and like 100 some reviews in general, but you can't, it's not easy to get to the bottom of them. And I gave up before I could get there. So
yeah, I'm looking now.
Of course, I did notice our 1-star reviews seem to be higher than I thought they were. So that's always.
There's only one that's high, and that was from like 4 years ago. So who cares? It's funny. It was such a funny reason too.
Was it I mispronounced the name? Because that's usually
no. It
Oh,
was about no, somebody didn't like. We had a Anthony Edwards and like Klay Thompson comparison about something. I don't even remember what the context was, but apparently they weren't a fan of that. So hey, I mean, listen, you never know what it's gonna be.
I was watching ESPN and they were talking about their votes for All-Star Game, which hint hint we will talk about during Ballin and Fallin. And a lot of the conversations were between I think it was Anthony Edwards and Dame being their votes. Most went for Anthony Edwards, one picked Dame, and they were saying how they're very close in voting or in stats for the season. And obviously that'll lead into what we're going to talk about here in a little bit with the Bucks and the firing and Doc coming to town. Although Doc was already kind of in town and helping Griffin, which feels shady.
Yeah, it feels like something. But before we get into all that, watch podcasts on YouTube, and now a word from our sponsors.
So like we said, Griffin out for the Bucks, Doc in for the Bucks in terms of coaching. To at least catch us up to speed, I think Griffin was 30-13 for the season when he was let go. Obviously, not a very long time to have a coach, because that's like we're not even halfway technically through the season. Giannis and Dame, I guess the wording would be, didn't seem to vibe well with him. And it seemed to be stemming from changes that he was trying to make with the team in terms of their defensive strategy, potentially offensive strategy. And so there were some rumblings. There were comments made about Giannis's brother. I don't know if that is an actual fact that happened. So I don't know. We can go down that road if we want, but I did see that tweet. So here we are. I was reading about a lot of coaches in the NBA. I think The Athletic reported this. Noticed that Griffin was having a hard time trying to implement new offenses and all that stuff. And that's where I had read that some coaches had been reaching out to him, offering advice, one of them being Doc Rivers. And that's where it leads to me and that past comment we made saying it seems a little shady now because he's the coach. How do you feel about all of it, I guess, as a whole, before we drill down?
I think the parallel that it reminds me of the most, because I was trying to remember if there was any sort of situation like this recently, and it reminds me of when Cleveland fired David Blatt and replaced them with Ty Lue.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that worked out tremendously for the Cavs. They ended up going on and winning the title this year.
Mm-hmm.
If Doc Rivers goes out and wins the title with the Bucks this year, that's going to look brilliant. Now, I have a lot of thoughts about that we'll get into in a second. But no, I mean, from an Adrian Griffin perspective, starting there for why it's happening now, because again, this is a team, granted, who's well, they lost last night, but they're 31-14 right now. They're still second in the Eastern Conference.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Same amount of losses as the Sixers do, but they played 2 more games than them, and both of them are wins. So I think there's a lot of people where that is shocking to see somebody go like that. But I also think the writing has been on the wall for a little bit. I mean, even from an optics perspective, like think about how damning it looks when Giannis is on the sideline, like drawing up a play on a whiteboard right now. Like,
yeah,
it feels
and making like not so subtle comments about what he was making comments about the team, but he also would throw the coaches in there too. So like,
yeah,
there's a lot of that.
I mean, it seems like from an offensive perspective that they were having trouble getting Damon. From a defensive perspective, and we talked a little bit about this, where like Bobby Portis has made comments, Brooke Lopez has made comments, where it definitely feels like they haven't been in sync on that side of the ball all year.
I was reading about that. Obviously, Lopez was in the running for defensive player last year, right? So
yeah,
what came to my mind was, why change it, right? Whatever he was doing last year was working because he was in the running for defensive players. So what I was reading, obviously Drew Holiday, a big part of their defensive presence, obviously not there. But with Lopez, they were having him attack the ball handler more than he was doing last year, which raised a lot of like, why are we doing this? Again, what he was doing last year when we were a top 10, I think it was top 10 defense, why would we change that up? Let that stay as it is. But I think it was Griffin trying to, adjust for the lack of Drew Holiday presence on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I mean, they've been a train wreck there. Like, yeah. I mean, I think there's something around 21st right now, I believe, in total defensive rating. And in a way, that's almost more generous than it feels like. Like, this team really has been lost. And when I look at the top of the Eastern Conference, and again, this is more of like a feel and a vibes testing, because they are winning games. And even if you want to drill down further, like we talked about this, of those 14 losses, 4 of them alone are just Indiana. But I don't know. It feels like when I watch the Celtics, when I watch the Sixers, even when I watch like the Knicks as of late, more with the Cavs as of late, like I feel like I'm just way more impressed with their wins night in and night out than I am against Milwaukee. Like, it just feels like Milwaukee is very vulnerable come playoff time. And listen, I mean, you knew there was going to be a defensive downgrade when you switched to Dame over Drew. Like, that was part of the give, is that you have an elite pick and roll with Giannis and Dame, but you give a little bit back. Some of that just hasn't, like Malik Beasley's been pretty terrible this year on the defensive end, where, they had hoped a little more out of there. But
remember when the trade initially happened between Dame and the Bucks, and we talked about, it might have been before it happened, maybe it was when the rumors were going on, but we talked about the potential of, instead of Drew, trade Chris Middleton.
Yeah.
Hindsight's obviously 2020, and at least from the number side of things, Chris Middleton's stats still seem pretty decent. But knowing the way that the defense has kind of taken a hit, do you think there would be an argument that the Bucks wish they had traded Chris over Drew and figured that formula out?
I think it's tough, because that trade will always be judged. And it's something we talked about at the time, because Drew immediately then ended up going to Boston. I know the deal was with Portland, but because then he goes and boosts your, in theory, your top of the Eastern Conference rival, somebody that you think you're likely going to have to go through at some point to get to the finals again.
Who now knows your whole offensive scheme and defensive scheme?
Yeah, which, like that part I'm not as worried about.
Yeah.
And I do think it was a calculated, like, I'm not about to sit here and say that I didn't like the Dame trade. Like, I think that's a calculated risk. I just think it's great. I just think it's it speaks to more of just Griffin straight up lost the locker room. And it's more of remarkable how quickly you can lose the locker room, especially when you're winning games. That's the point. It's not like this team is underachieving necessarily.
Or how quickly you can lose the locker room when you and the star player that you have already set a precedent with aren't vibing.
Yeah, I mean, he and Giannis just weren't there. Like that. Yeah. That's all the rumblings are there. Every newsbreaker and reporter has had it. Mark Stein had this whole piece. Mark Stein's piece was interesting because he said that Giannis just didn't want to be coached by Nick Nurse more than anything, and then that's why they went with Adrian Griffin. Well, I'm sitting here like, you could have gone. There were other guys out there than Nick Nurse. Like,
well, but like that's I get. This goes down the whole sports coaching and ownership probably theory at this point. Is I get listening to your star player in that aspect and having to make sure they're happy, specifically in a situation back when Giannis hadn't signed the contract and you wanted to make sure he was with the team going forward and not leaving. But there does become a point where, I'm not saying this is the case, but there does become a point where, like, you also have to protect that player from themselves. Like, do you think if Nick Nurse walks into this team, from what we've seen with the Sixers, where would they be right now? Probably really good.
I feel pretty good. Yeah, Nick Nurse is looking real good right now.
That's what I mean. So, like, again, if Giannis didn't want Nick Nurse, fine. But look at, again, hindsight is 2020. We look at it, it's like maybe if Nick Nurse was an actual play that you could have gotten and it was going to happen, like, maybe that should have happened. I don't know. A Sixers fan, I'm happy it didn't right now.
Yeah. I mean, the other part too is, and this came out in the last Chris Haynes report, is that, Milwaukee internal management basically thought, because this core is getting older. Brook Lopez is old at this point. Yeah. Chris Middleton is getting older at this point. And so I know it's tough to hear when you're a few years removed from winning the title and when you have one of the best players in the NBA who's trying to win every single year. But, basically the reports are that with Griffin, they took a first-year coach on because they thought they were kind of going to take a step back a little bit. So you're okay with, the learning curve and more, sure, learning on the job, essentially, if you're taking a step back. But then you go out and you get Dame Lillard, and it changes everything right away. Like, you have Giannis and Dame, you are expected to win this year, and you are expected to be right there at the top.
So it's not essentially the team that Griffin thought he was coming in to coach, right? The mentality changes, and in that case, to your point, maybe you don't want a rookie head coach, a coach that's going to need a little bit to learn. You do need there are a lot of options, but like a Nick Nurse, or in this case, a Doc Rivers, who I know we're about to dump on, has a record of at least winning basketball.
All right. So Milwaukee's hiring Doc Rivers, right?
Yeah.
All right. Can I just, for 1 second? Oh, baby. You are telling me that every Eastern Conference contender, I'm putting the Homer hat on right now. I need a Sixers-Bucks second-round matchup. And if the Sixers lose that matchup, I might just go immolate myself and just get it over with. But, I need Doc Rivers in the second round so bad to just utterly obliviate the most overrated coach in NBA history. I cannot believe Milwaukee said we have win now expectations, and that's fine. You can sell me on that and letting Griffin go. But then you go in and you bring in Doc Rivers, the noted playoff failure for the past 12 years.
Not even that.
What?
What I like is the big thing is the defensive identity, the offensive identity, the rotations of the team. We don't know what that is right now. So you're going to bring in a guy who, at least just speaking from the time with the 76ers, all I heard was his rotations were terrible.
Buddy, Doc Rivers is the only person that's ever made Tyrese Maxey sad. Think about that. Like, he made Tyrese Doc stinks. And so me as a Sixers fan, like, I'm ecstatic about that. I'm sitting here going, are you kidding me? Like, I truly feel like it's knocked one of the rivals out potentially. Like, I don't think the Bucks are going to win anything now. Like, we're going to have the king of not making adjustments. Like, what's he going to draw? Give Giannis the ball and try to run it up the gut every single time? Yeah, I truly think that firing Griffin because you wanted a track record of playoff success and then going to hire Doc Rivers in the Lord's year 2024 is just, it's an atrocity. I can't believe Doc is still finessing these jobs after the Sixers. How on earth could anyone see how the Sixers are playing this year? Look at what he's done the past few years. Because namely, the big one for me is go back to that second round series against Atlanta and say we want to hire Doc Rivers and give faith. Like, what are we talking about? Like, I swear, NBA teams must have think that 08 happened every single year and that 08 wasn't carried by three of the better players in NBA history.
Yeah, man. It's but like, what are your options, especially if you're moving on in the middle of the season with a team that only has at that time 13 losses? You're in second in the Eastern Conference. Like, you're already a successful team. You've shown that you can win just off the talent alone, especially if you're saying the defense isn't good. The offense is top in the league, or is top in the league, I should say. And you just need somebody that can come in and kind of like hold the line, essentially. I guess Rivers and it accomplishes that. Maybe.
Sure, you're going to win regular season games, and
right.
Guys definitely respect him, and there will be that experience. Like, I don't think they're not going to be able to tune out Doc the way that they tuned out Adrian Griffin.
Yeah.
But also, are you not? How look at
yeah.
I mean, Harden last year clashed with Doc. There are multiple reports about that. Maxi's come out and said afterwards that he wasn't happy about the way that Doc was bringing him off the bench. I don't know. It feels panicky move. And it was different with Ty Lue and Blatt. I go back to that situation where it was Ty Lue was an up-and-coming young prospect coach who had a ton of respect in the locker room, who was a former player.
LeBron endorsed him, didn't he?
Yeah, Doc, I guess if he has Giannis's endorsement, you feel better about that a little bit.
But going back to Giannis's unendorsement of Nick Nurse in that case, I get it. Nick Nurse is, I guess, a newer coach, but we see what it is now in Philly. He might have, if Nick Nurse was an option for the Bucks, and the reason they went away from him is because Giannis didn't want him as a coach. That doesn't look great right now.
Yeah. Oh, no, it doesn't. It's especially, I mean, yeah, you hit it on the head. I don't think it doesn't. And I mean, here's the other reality is look, I know this is a punchline, but it's I'm also looking at the Bucks and going, yeah, you guys are actively wasting 2 roster spaces right now. You've got Thanasis and you've got Robin Lopez.
But
what are they here for?
But one of those players, according to some reports, is who Griffin brought up about trading and might have started this process even more.
Well, that's insane. If that's insane. Thanasis is stealing money from this organization, basically. And I know you got to appease Giannis, but that dude is not an NBA player. He's not. He is, to me, I think he's unquestionably the worst player in the league.
I'm gonna see if I can find the tweet that was put out there, because the quote that apparently was from Griffin, again, from what I was reading, is what got Giannis upset. Now, on top of all the other stuff.
While you're talking about that, I think if the Bucks at the deadline also could maybe add some defense. The 2 names that stick out are if the Blazers move for Matisse Thybulle, I think you could make a play for him. I think the other one is potentially I know he's part of a rumored Siakam package. So maybe if the Kings still have Davion Mitchell available, I think maybe you go out and take a swing there. They probably wouldn't cost that much overall.
Here,
maybe Thybulle may a little more, but
so this was the quote from, I guess, Chris Haynes put this out. Adrian, was bullying my brothers, saying he's committing insurance fraud by being in the NBA and he has to go. That's Giannis on the Bucks firing Adrian Griffin.
That, I don't think that it's real, but the premise of it, I mean,
well,
listen.
Right. But that's what I'm saying is this might be a case of, I get it. I guess it. I get that it's family. But now we're like you said, if it's a roster spot that could be taken up by someone else that might help them win, maybe Giannis says he wants to win, but he only wants to win his way. And there's a time where, like, you got to have somebody in the locker room. Maybe there's a coach that's willing to butt heads and like, hey, let's make sure this is right for everybody and everybody wins.
Yeah, and that your brother already got the NBA bag, and then maybe you should be taking up a roster spot. You could give it to a valuable two-way player, somebody that could, I don't know, maybe come up from the G League and give you a little bit of wing defense. I don't know, just maybe a thought there.
Right. So that's my point is you are very much setting a precedent with Giannis, which I think you do because he is one of the best NBA players in the league right now. But you're really letting him dictate everything right now.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of knew that, and I don't fully disagree there. It's just my thing is if you're letting him dictate your just replacement can't be Doc Rivers. Like, that's my thing is it's like, if you want to go for a more win now coach, that's fine. You're lying.
What are the options? What are the other options? Other than Doc, who, by the way, Doc, because he was helping
Brett Brown. Give me the other Sixers coach. Go get him off San Antonio's staff. That'd be a better hire.
But at least from Doc's situation, where you have a case of the team literally can't falter. You don't want any kind of like hiccup while this transition happens. Doc was already helping Griffin. So Doc is sort of understanding of the situation in the locker room and the goals of the team and the theory that was around the changes that were happening. It, from that standpoint, is okay, let's just bring him in. We can hit the ground running. And there's not going to be another learning curve where we only have half a season to figure this out before we get to a playoff situation, and we gotta win.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And again, the win now expectations, I think, kind of really did everything there and spurred this situation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good before the bad. And so balling for me this week is originally was only going to be Joel Embiid with 70 points, but now after last night, Luka Doncic as well. Hello, welcome to Ballin, a pair of 70 burgers. Luka with 73 against the Hawks, and Embiid with 70 against the Spurs. There have now been 10 players to get 70 points in an NBA game, and 4 of them have happened in the last calendar year.
And I wanted, I think my wife was joking with me last night because she brought up, she goes, "Oh, Luka." How did she say it? She said Luka Doncic is scored, and I was like, "Oh, Luka Doncic, yep." And she's like, "It's the most points." The way she said it wasn't correct. She said it was the most points since Kobe's 81 game. And I was like, "Well, that's not the case because we just had like 4 people do more than that."
How would that be possible?
Yeah, I was like, that just happened. But I forget what the actual thing was. I think it was I forget how it was, but either way, huge accomplishment. And like, what suddenly happened where everyone's deciding they're just going to have 60 or 70 bombs go off?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been, and I mean, part of it is the defensive rules, which people have talked about a little bit, that have skewed more towards offense here recently.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it is kind of crazy when you think about it, because before, so Book scored 70 back in 2017, and that was the loss, which was crazy. And that had been the first.
How does, and this could probably be a conversation because I know where we're going to go with Fallin, but how does somebody on your team score over, let's say, 55 points and you lose?
I hear you. It is a very valid question, but the crazy part before that is that before that Book game in 2017, Kobe's 81 was the last time anybody had broken 70. And before Kobe, it had been 12 years with David Robinson in 94 when he had David Robinson had 71. The only people who have had 73 were David Thompson did it in 1978, and he was the first player other than Wilt and Elgin Baylor to do it in a game. Wilt did it twice because of course he did. And then of course Wilt had 78 in the 100 game. Kobe's 81, man. Kobe's 81 just continues to be outrageous. Like, especially when you think about the fact that he had 53 at the end of the third. But I mean, these are some of the most brilliant games I've ever seen in watching Embiid the other night, in watching Luka last night, and to just like Embiid would have needed 11 more. Luka needed 8 more. Like
just
these
get it.
guys were getting opportunities, and it's just to get all that to fall it really is crazy. In the past 4 years, it was Donovan Mitchell, January 2nd of last year had 71. Dame had 71 in February, and then Embiid and Luka obviously had it here back to back, which is pretty crazy. Either way, though, just absolute masterclasses. Joel's was on the actual anniversary of Kobe's 81-point game too, so that's kind of crazy.
And what I would love to do, because I was thinking about this after I saw that and Embiid posted, a whole thing about it. I wonder, again, this goes back to my sports betting degenerate side of things, is I should just mark down on the calendar Kobe's anniversary of that and just take somebody scoring over 65. Like if there's like somebody in the NBA will score over 65 bet, just hammer that every time, every year, once a year, just hammer that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's gonna it's been happening a lot recently.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. And on the anniversary, I feel like we talk about this every year that it happens. So I think it might be a trend.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But who's balling for you this week?
Ballin for me is the NBA All-Star starters officially out. The balling part I wanted to highlight, and we can go into the top 5 for each and all the stars, but the main highlight was LeBron, who now makes history with his 20th All-Star selection. Him and Giannis are going to be the captains this year.
Yeah, which has been, I mean, it was LeBron and KD the one year, but it's basically been LeBron and Giannis for the last 3 now?
I think so. Yeah, at this point, I feel like we're just going to get another Zoom call kind of deal with them. We'll just go from there. But in the announcement, I guess the biggest snub that people obviously are pointing to is Steph Curry is not on the list.
Yeah, I mean the guard lineup is always tough.
Yep.
And I mean, a part of that is just it's the emergence of the new guys, right? Like that's really the big story in the West. Like it is kind of a new, I mean, I know you got LeBron in there, and I would say Jokic too is obviously a staple now.
Kevin Durant.
True. But
but he kind of bounces east and west. He's kind of all over.
Well, yeah. But in the backcourt, SGA has been the guard this year in the Western Conference. I mean, really, when you look at the MVP standings, I mean, he's probably right up there as well. Like it's been an emergent story for him.
And if you look at him and Luka and Steph, like their points that like the averages are very close. So then it goes to team record, and we know what it is. So
the Warriors are just down, and I mean, Steph is going to make the All-Star team. Obviously, like we're not suggesting otherwise.
Snub him.
That'd be so ridiculous. Could you imagine? And then my bad. Go over the East for me one more time.
East is Giannis, Joel, Tatum, Hallie, and Dame. Dame is the one that was up for debate in a lot of NBA, ESPN chatter. And from what I saw, most people were voting for either Dame or Maxey were the two that I kind of saw.
I would say I'm going to sound like a homer here, but like I think Maxey's having a better season than Dame is right now. Hallie has to be there as well. I think there's no question there, and everything else is fine. Like Tatum, Giannis, Embiid, no-brainers. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. But I mean, we're pulling hairs here. Again, I think Maxey's had a better season than Dame has. That's just my opinion. I'm probably a little biased there.
I've also been like an uber hater of teams having multiple guys in the starters.
Yeah.
Although I am a Sixers fan, so I would have been fine with it. So I'm okay with like, I'm also okay with just everybody's on a different team and we roll. Like I'm cool with that.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, Fallin for me this week is, again, only was going to be Karl Anthony Towns. Then Devin Booker got himself added to the list as well. Why, you ask? Because they both had 62 points and lost their games this week. Devin Booker's getting spoiled last night by the Pacers, who rallied. Karl Anthony Towns had where the Hornets came back. Towns had 44 in the first half, and that was on the Embiid night. So you said, "Oh my God, he might actually get 80 tonight."
Yeah,
the night when Embiid is going crazy. And in their case, I mean, Towns ended up getting benched in this game. I think the Wolves probably trying to feed Cat a little too much. I think they got a little too lost in the sauce and tried to
got him
forget
benched. It got him benched. So
and, you have to win the game as well. That does matter. Embiid and Luka won the game. I think that's kind of a fluke with Towns. And again, this is what a season the Wolves have been having. But it does damper it a little bit when your team doesn't come out here with a win here a little bit. I mean, that's we talked about in Book now with a loss in a 60-point game and a loss in a 70-point game is absolutely outrageous.
I already talked about it. How is that even a thing? How does someone score that much and you don't get that? You don't win. It's so wild to me, unless it is a situation where it's selfish basketball and the personal goal of scoring a certain amount for a player is put above a team win. But even so, if someone's dropping 65 points in a game, it's dang, man, you guys really have to be just what is everyone else doing? Save your energy for defense.
Yeah, well, and that's probably what they needed to do a little bit. I mean, in the case of Towns, it was they just got smoked in that fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They were up big, and it was frankly, it was a lot of hero ball down the stretch. You can't lose the main thing. You got to remember what you're here for. And again, Wolves are having a great season. They've been cruising, but that is a good reminder that come playoff times, you're not going to want to do that. I know you're trying to feed the hot hand, but and Anthony Edwards admitted as much in the game afterwards. He said we lost focus. We all got caught up in the moment. We saw Embiid had 70. They were probably trying to go crazy and match that as well. They saw the opportunity and they got lost in the sauce a little bit.
Yep. My Fallin is going to be Kevin Durant, who's catching a stray L on Twitter. And I had to send this to you because you are also named Kevin.
I am. Confirmed.
Eddie Gonzalez was asked about the Mount Rushmore of Kevins. And his response was Kevin Bacon, Kevin McAllister, Kevin Federline, and Kevin Nash. So Kevin Durant responds that and says, no disrespect, but Federline over me is nasty.
It is crazy. That's great. That's crazy. If on the Mount Rushmore, that's wild.
So I pulled up ranker.com because there's a ranker for everything.
Of course.
Now this is not Mount Rushmore of Kevins. It's just who people thought is the most famous Kevin in the world, which I think gets us close to at least what we're trying to talk about here.
All right.
Their list is Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
Kevin Hart. Kevin James. Kevin Durant. Kevin Costner.
Okay, so my Mount Rushmore, when I looked at it initially, is I think Kevin Bacon's a lock.
Has to be.
And then at that point, it just kind of depends whether you lean more sports or comedy. Because I think the people that I initially had around it were KD, Kevin Hart, Kevin Costner, and Kevin James. Because I mean, I'm a huge to me, Kevin James has to be on it. I like his stand-up a lot. I loved King of Queens. I just think he's a super wholesome guy. So I feel like he should be there. I guess I'm cutting Costner, but am I? I don't know. It's tough. You got Field of Dreams, you got Dances with Wolves.
I also low key, and I know this isn't going to be a popular opinion, but I am pretty nerdy myself, and I feel like a lot of nerdiness culture, I guess is the word, can thank Kevin Smith for that. So he probably would be up there for me because of everything. He just his whole resume of comic books, comedy, writing that he's done. I feel like he's involved in a lot. So there's a big part of that I think needs a nod. On this list, in the top 10 at least, Kevin Garnett is on there. Kevin Jonas from the Jonas Brothers. My wife would want me to make that mention.
I was gonna say he should be mentioned at least. I don't think he's on Mount Rushmore, but he should be mentioned.
Kevin Spacey's on this list.
Okay, well, so I was going to talk about that, and I said the list radically changed when Kevin Spacey became a huge. Kevin Spacey would have been right near the top for me, and then just absolutely was a huge creep, and so that kind of craters everything.
Okay, help me out with the name here. I know you're more of a soccer guy than myself. His name's Kevin.
Oh, Kevin De Bruyne?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep.
Kevin De Bruyne from an international standpoint is easily the biggest sports one.
Yeah.
He's one of the best soccer players of the past 10 years. I think worldwide, if we're doing worldwide,
that changes
it's probably De Bruyne, Hart, James, and Kevin Bacon.
Which,
I think
by the
Costa
way,
would be the one on there. I mean, the NBA wise, I still have KD higher, but I mean, you've got two pretty good ones behind him with KG, and then with even Kevin Love.
Yeah, Kevin Love.
So, but I don't think Love and KG from a common perspective are more popular than Durant. I mean, honestly, Kevin McHale too. I didn't even think about that. Like Kevin McHale would be a great hoops one as well. I mean, Hall of Famer.
Obviously,
a bunch of titles with Larry Bird.
Is there a football Kevin that we're missing?
Kevin Cobb.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, I mean, I'm sure there is.
No, but not like, I don't know. There's no quarterback, or I don't think I'm snubbing a wide receiver. Kevin Curtis,
the Eagles receiver for a while.
Yeah. By the way, I will put out that we do need to put Kevin Hart on our list. He's a Philly guy, so like we gotta kind of.
Well, I think he is now anyway. Like just between all the movies, all the stand up, like I think Kevin Hart, just off his work ethic, is probably there at this point.
Yeah.
Either way, though, KT definitely has very legitimate beef with getting snubbed over Kevin Federline. That's crazy. That's really, really something. But all right, should we switch gears here a little bit? Let's get into Immaculate Grid before we get out of here.
Let's do it.
Podcast listeners, of course, you can always watch Immaculate Grid on YouTube. Just search Driving Dish NBA podcast. But for the podcast listeners, across from our columns this week, from left to right, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves. We got first round draft pick, and we got born outside the U.S. 50 states in D.C. Our rows from top to bottom, we've got the Atlanta Hawks, the Memphis Grizzlies, and 10 rebounds a game per season. So a lot lower team-wise this week, but regardless, I think I feel good about this. We should be able to move here pretty quick.
I know an obvious answer for Grizzlies Timberwolves is going to be Mike Conley.
Yes, absolutely.
Also think Derrick Rose works there.
Yeah, he does, because Derrick Rose is on Memphis this season. He played a few years in Minnesota. Which
I would say I want to go Derrick Rose here, but Derrick Rose, first round draft pick for the Grizzlies, might be a wild
I
move.
actually think it'll be really low. I think that's a good one. I would like to use. I think we should use that there, because he wasn't drafted by the team. Like when you do the first round pick and they weren't drafted by the team, it gets significantly lower.
Yeah,
and so I think
let's 0.7%.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the beauty of the first round draft pick category, is that you really can get some low, because they don't have to be drafted by that team. If they had to be drafted by that team, it would get a little different.
Okay. Whenever it's Hawks anything, I always go point guard. Like, did Teague or
Teague did work. That's literally the first person I was going to bring up. I was going to say Jeff Teague does work for Atlanta, Minnesota.
Yeah, like Teague. There's no Schroeder didn't play for Timberwolves, I don't think.
Nope. I mean, I'm trying to run through in my head quick. I don't think Sam Cassell played for Atlanta.
Did he made? I think he was on the Hawks for a very short stint. Lance Stevenson. Did he ever was he ever in Minnesota too?
I don't think so.
That'd be a wild.
Good for you for remembering him on the Hawks. I don't even remember him on the Hawks.
Oh, well, the other question could be, was Stevenson a first round pick? Because we could go Stevenson for the Hawks, and that would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
I don't know if he was a first round pick though. Okay. I mean, Teague works, and we know he works. We can always come back to it. I'm not sure about Stevenson. I think Stevenson might also work there, but I don't know if he was a first round pick.
I don't think he played for Minnesota, and I don't feel like if he was a first round pick, he was lower. He definitely wasn't a higher. Like, I don't think he was a lotto pick.
That's what I mean, is that would be a wild. Dude, I'm trying to think of other like John Collins. I'm pretty confident he was a first rounder.
Oh yeah, first rounder. I mean, for Atlanta, Sadiq Bey was a first rounder. John
Oh yeah,
Collins was a first rounder.
was Kevin
Trey
Herter?
Young, DeJounte Murray.
Was Kevin
Uh,
Herter?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kevin Herter was a first
I think he
rounder.
was too.
DeAndre Hunter was a first rounder for them.
Yeah, we just gotta think. Clint Capella probably was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Clint Capella was a. I mean, they got a bunch.
I know. Was Kyle Korver a first
No, Kyle
rounder?
Korver was getting fax machines. He was definitely not a first rounder.
Yeah. Okay.
That's always what I go back to. But
So, I want to try Lance Stevenson so bad. I want to try it so bad. But let's revisit. Let's get the other stuff first.
All right, we'll come back and we'll think about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Conley is the obvious one for Grizzlies and Timberwolves.
Conley's the obvious one. You could also obviously go for Mark Gasol for Born Outside 50 States and DC.
Yeah, those are all
easy.
Fairly easy to me. I mean, for the Grizz, Steven Adams right now is Born Outside.
Oh yeah, I forgot Steven Adams was there.
Yeah. Atlanta, Okongwu, Bogdanovich, Schroeder.
Yep.
Trying to think who else over the years has been there.
Oh man.
The Born Outside the US and 10 rebounds a game is normally, you would think, is difficult, but like
Rudy.
I already have two answers without even thinking.
Yeah.
And that's Hakeem Olajuwon and
Rudy Gobert.
And Tim Duncan. Well, Rudy Gobert. Oh yeah, Gobert's a great one too. Rudy Gobert, Tim Duncan.
Yeah. But we can save Rudy for Timberwolves 10 rebounds. Right?
Yeah, honestly, that's a good one. Because the only other one, the other one my mind goes to is KG.
Yeah.
But KG might be closer with 10 boards.
And so I was gonna say, I feel like, again, I could be wrong, but I feel like KG 10 rebounds got me burned once. I don't know if I have it wrong.
No, he had to have 10, right?
I think so. I just remember getting burned by the 10 rebounds, and I feel like it was KG. I could maybe I'm not on the right one.
Put it this way, I don't think it would be in Minnesota. Like KG was in the peak of his career in Minnesota. If anything, I mean, well, no, I mean, never mind. I was gonna say I'd be more worried about Rudy in Minnesota just because he had a rougher first last year. But I think Rudy stumbles into 10 rebounds a game without even
think so too. I'm pretty confident he does. So, and I would say we could put him over in the Born outside because people are going to be drawn to putting Rudy in that corner there.
So why don't we do this? Hear me out.
Okay.
Why don't we do Rudy for Minnesota?
Okay.
And then do Kevin Garnett for first round draft pick and 10 rebounds a game per season.
We can do that. Just flip it.
I think it works. Yeah, I think it works. And I don't think KG would be high at first round and 10 a game because I think people would use him for Minnesota.
Okay. You want to go Kevin Garnett here?
Yeah, because he definitely had 10 a game at some point.
Okay, he did. Good call. Good call. I don't know. I'll have to try to remember which one the 10 rebound thing burned me on.
Yeah, that would have been wild. I'm gonna pull up KG quick.
Did he ever do it for the Celtics? Maybe that's what burned me. He never had.
No, he didn't, and that's what burned you. He was at 9.2. Literally his first year in Boston.
That's what it was.
He never got above 10 again.
So
the rest of his career.
That's what screwed me up on an Immaculate Grid once.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, he had because he had between 98 and 07 in Minnesota, he averaged over 10 a game. Including the year before he went to the Celtics. He had 12.8 a game in 06-07 and then got traded to the Celtics and went down to 9.2.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to go
yeah, we go
Rudy here.
There. Yeah, Rudy will definitely work there.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert, boom, 15%. Actually, kind of lower than I thought it would be, but okay.
Yeah,
that's probably because Garnett. Yeah,
I think KG is the main.
So do we just want to finish the 10 rebounds? Like we just want to do Born Outside US and
I'm fine with that. Olajuwon, Duncan.
Any other random like is Valanciunas?
He's definitely Born Outside the US.
He's gotta have.
Yeah, I would think he does too, right? I mean, he's a traditional big.
Yeah, and who else? Was it Valanciunas that was on? Am I thinking of Valanciunas? Yeah, on the. Did he end up on the Raptors?
Yeah, he was on the Raptors for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
on the
I'm thinking.
Raptors. He's on
Yeah.
the Pels.
Then he ended up in. Actually, didn't he end up in Memphis?
Yeah, at one point he was in. I think he was in Toronto for the beginning of his career. Then he was in Memphis, and then he's
So
still with the Pels.
So him for Born Outside the U.S.
I like that.
For
I'm definitely.
Memphis might be interesting.
Oh, true. Well, I like him for the 10 boards more because I know it's right, and I can easily think of more foreign players on Memphis, I guess is my point.
Yeah. So you want to go Valanciunas
I like
there?
Valanciunas there for sure. I think it's gonna be real low.
Oh yeah, 0.8%.
Absolutely, or 0.8, my bad.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we need Born Outside the US 50 states for the Grizz and the Hawks. We need first round pick for the Hawks, and we need Grizz Wolves and Hawks Wolves. All right, so let's do the Born Outside the US 50 states in DC. So for the Grizz, the three, I guess, since they're brothers or that work, are the Gasol brothers and Steven Adams, without even thinking. They were all born outside.
And if I'm being honest, I think we do the little tricky Paul Gasol move with the Memphis, because to me, Steven Adams is on the team right now.
Yeah.
And Marc Gasol is a Memphis legend. So you go Paul Gasol, people aren't going to be thinking that, at least until the third player. And then now you add Valanciunas into that list. They might even put him over Paul Gasol just because they're just thinking.
I think you're very optimistic with people putting Valanciunas over Powell, but I agree with Powell behind Mark and behind Steven Adams. So like you got me there, and I'm with it. I'm fine.
All right, let's do. Okay, damn, 20%.
The Hall of Famer.
I know,
can't really
but
creep away.
But for the Lakers, like not the Grizzlies.
He won Rookie of the Year with the Grizzlies.
I know.
And he got the mark back.
All right.
Deal. All right, so real quick, I'm gonna recap this. We're halfway through. First round draft pick for the Grizz, we got Derrick Rose. Born outside the US 50 states in DC for the Grizz, Pau Gasol. 10 rebounds a game per season for the Wolves, Rudy Gobert. For first round draft pick, Kevin Garnett. For born outside the US 50 states in DC, Jonas Valanciunas.
We're getting sneaky with some of these low percentages. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Hawks first round pick, I feel like we can get low if we just think of guys who
immediately went to other teams and did good for them.
I'm trying to think of like
people think of Millsap.
No, played for the Hawks as a first round pick.
He
was taken number 1 overall, and that's why I know this. Joe Smith. Do Joe Smith for first round draft pick in the Hawks. Yeah.
Okay. You want to go Joe Smith?
Yeah, he played in the league forever, and he played there towards the end of his career. Like, he got drafted in 95. He was in the news recently for, I don't know if I want to talk about that on the podcast. It's nothing bad, but it was like he was arguing with his wife because he found out his wife had a certain page on a certain site that may be popular at 0.1%. That's what I'm talking about. You know, you guys,
is it called Uno fans?
Yeah, you know, something like that, allegedly. But he was number 1 overall pick.
Wow,
that's the beauty of doing first round draft picks, is like they may not associate with you with a certain team. Like Joe Smith, I think most people probably associate with like Minnesota, if I had to guess.
I would bet. I would imagine.
I mean, he was all over. He played.
We could have done him for Hawks, Minnesota then.
Oh, yeah, we could have. You're right. You're right. That would have been real low. He played for the Warriors, the Sixers, the Wolves, the Pistons, the Bucks, the Nuggets, the Bulls, the Cavs, the Thunder, the Hawks, the Nets, and the Lakers. So
I mean,
I've got the answers for all 3 of these. Like, we could rattle these off real quick if we want to. It's just I think some of them are going to be chalky. Like, I don't have a better answer than Grizzlies Timberwolves right now, unless I just want to guess Rod Strickland, because Rod Strickland is like he's become my Ish Smith Hail Mary. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I know he played for the Timberwolves. I'm not going to really guess our grid on that. Because I think for the Grizz, but
I think Kyle Anderson works.
For Grizz Wolves?
Yeah.
I feel like Kyle Anderson works for Grizz Wolves. So, I mean, I know he works for the Grizz 100%.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he does.
I think he works for the Wolves too. Because was he there recently?
That's what I think. Yeah.
I think so too. I like that a lot, Just. I'm cool with that.
Okay. Anderson. Hold up.
Not kidding.
Nope. Why is he not? There he is.
Kyle, there we go. Wow, yeah, he was kind of low there.
15%.
Yeah, not gonna lie. Damn. I mean, Conley would have been higher for sure.
Conley definitely would have been higher. Okay. So the last two, Hawks Timberwolves and Hawks born outside of the US. I'm still kind of convinced Lance Stevenson works in the Hawks Timberwolves connection.
I just have zero. Granted, I don't have any recollection of him playing for the Hawks either.
I do. It was very short. Like I'm talking like maybe 15, 20 games.
All right. Let's bang this born outside the US out. And if we're 8 and 9, we can guess Lance Stevenson.
So my go-to born outside of the US is always Schroeder, but I feel like that's probably a common theme with everybody.
Yeah, I'm guessing. Believe it or not, I think the most Hawks common player, it might be Mutombo.
Oh,
I feel like people will really associate Mutombo with being born outside the country.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, Bogdanovich and Okongwu are the two that are there now. But and honestly, though, I like Schroeder more than that, just because Schroeder's not on the team anymore. Like Bogdanovich and Okongwu are both still on the team right now.
What about the earlier years, the Millsap, the who were the players around those guys?
Oh, I don't think Al Horford was born. I'm pretty sure Al Horford was born in DR.
Oh, that could be interesting. Okay, hold on. And DC. Okay.
Yeah, by Dominican Republic. So yes,
I know.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even say Dominican Republic in here, so that's why I was confused. But okay.
Well, because DR is not; it's its own country. Why would it say that?
No. DC. I mean, it doesn't say. That's what I mean. I was confused.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That could be interesting.
I mean, Horford will be higher, I think, because he played there for a while. He definitely was. I mean, he's for sure born in Dominican Republic.
But is that a very commonly known thing, or do they just assume?
I don't know, because I don't associate. Yeah, I don't know. I don't associate with him being there right away, but I did think of that kind of quickly. But I'd be fine with Horford.
You want to try Horford? Let's try Horford.
Well, I know it's right, so yeah, I'm cool with doing that, which means we get to cash in on Lance Stevenson, I guess.
4%, maybe.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy.
Because I just assume, again, I don't know, but
he went to school in Florida, I guess, and had those back-to-back titles there. I don't really
assume he's a US guy. I don't know. I just always assumed he was.
It's crazy too, because you're right. People probably don't talk about that enough. Al Horford is one of the most successful Latin American basketball players ever. Arguably, maybe the most successful ever. And we probably don't talk about that enough as we should.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to do Lance Stevenson to cap this off?
I remember him on the Hawks, and I feel like I remember him on the Timberwolves.
I trust your weird judgments, because I have zero here, but your hunches usually steer us right. So
Lance is in that random group of NBA players that when I start the grid, I immediately look to see if they work. It's Lance, it's Elfrid Payton, and it's Matthew Dellavedova. Those are the three that I always look to see if they work for some reason.
I think of Lance obviously with the Pacers, but I remember because he signed a big contract. I remember Lance with the Pelicans. I remember Lance with the Lakers.
And I think he got pulled to the Hawks in between that. I don't remember the timeline of it. I just remember a very short stint with them. And
Either
then
way,
I think he's got the Timberwolves on the lock too.
Either way, I trust you. Let's let it rip and see how it goes.
Boom, baby.
All right, with a 60 rarity score. Let's go.
Holy moly.
All right, good job, Just. Hell yeah.
3, baby. It's still not the lowest, though. Although Joe Smith just jumped up to 0.2. Wasn't he 0.1 a second ago?
It was a second ago. I don't know what changed there, but I think KG went down 1, though. So
someone else used him. Some people would be playing this game right now.
Yeah, but so to recap our
Ooh,
successful grid, Lance Stevenson for Hawks and Wolves, Joe Smith for Hawks first round draft pick, Al Horford for Hawk born outside the US 50 states in DC, Pau Gasol for Grizzly born outside the US, Derrick Rose for first round draft pick, Kyle Anderson for Grizzlies and Wolves, Rudy Gobert for Wolves, 10 rebounds a game per season, KG for first round draft pick, 10 boards a season, and Jonas Valanciunas for born outside the 50 states and DC and Tennessee season. Let's get our top guys. You mind pulling that up for me real quick? We'll scroll on
yeah,
down. So Jeff Teague, who we mentioned at first, was most common for Hawks and
makes
Wolves.
sense.
Trey Young, first round draft pick. Dikembe
And
Mutombo, okay, born
yeah,
outside the US, 50 states. For Grizzlies, born outside was Marcus Gasol. For first round draft pick, John Morant. For Grizzlies and Wolves, Mike Conley, who we expected. It was KG for Wolves and 10 rebounds a game. Shaq for first round draft pick with
interesting.
10 rebounds a game, and Hakeem Olajuwon for 10 a game and born outside the US and DC. So
Interesting.
yeah, not bad at all, Just. It was definitely one of our better grids. I think we really good all around. I like those guesses. Definitely
Yeah.
some unique ones there. Nothing real chalky at all.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
got
everybody for listening to this episode of Driving Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music. By the way, Lance Stevenson with the Pacers until 2016 or till
LeBron
2015.
James blowing in the ear years.
Yeah, he was with the Pacers from 2010 to 2014. Then he was with the Hornets.
Hornets,
Um,
okay.
then he was with the Clippers and the Grizzlies in the same season.
Okay.
Then he was with the Pelicans and the Timberwolves, and then back to the Pacers in the same season. He played six, so he's probably on 10 days because he played for 6 games for all of them.
Yeah.
Then he played another full season with Indy in 2018, the year with the Lakers. Then he went to China. Then he
I
came
forgot
back
about the
and
Lakers.
had 6 games with the Hawks. So damn good for you, Justin. 6 games with the Hawks in 2021, 22.
Oh,
And then
that's
he
recent.
actually
I
went
thought
back
that
to
was
the
a longer. Damn, I thought that was like
Yeah.
years ago that he did it. Okay.
No, and then he came back to the Pacers again. So he really played for the Pacers a lot then. He had 40 more games with them.
Interesting.
Obviously been chilling since then, but
Interesting. All
yeah,
right.
all over the place.
Well, yeah, and follow us on YouTube, Driving Dish NBA. You can watch video version of the podcast there. Obviously, if you subscribe, you'll get notifications when new videos are coming out, which means new podcasts are coming out.